So far away, Lucas, and lovely audience at home, same question to yourselves. Who is your favourite British comedian?
I don't know favourite definitely, but one person that springs to mind is Daniel Sloss. They're like very, outspoken in a good way, and also have a lot of like fun, dark comedy that I appreciate.
From Scotland, I like explaining Scotland to some Americans. I'm like, I'm from Scotland. Ah, so you're English. The opposite of what you just said. Stupid Canadians.
Well, we're not talking about him today. We're talking about one of my favourite comedians, Tommy Cooper. Tommy Cooper was a fez-wearing comedy magician widely considered to be one of the singular most influential people in all of British light comedy entertainment history.
I shall now produce from empty cloth 4 live ducks. Oh! I got away again.
A towering figure, both metaphorically and literally, he was capable of bringing down the house with nothing more than a simple gesture. He also tipped people teabags. So how familiar are you, Lucas, with the comedian Tommy Cooper?
So I know of Tommy Cooper. I'm aware of them wearing the fez and being a comedian, and I've seen clips here and there. I don't know if I'm right in associating them with like very quick, fast-moving comedy.
Yes, like Tommy Cooper, despite performing on stage like decades ago at this point, their style of humour feels very modern. It was, as you mentioned, very quick.
Oh, is it hot? It's the heat that does it.
Very slapstick, very cheeky. It's very British. Like, it's hard to define what makes it feel British, but there's just something about it that feels distinctly British. Like, it's a bit shit. And that's like by design, because Tommy Cooper was a very skilled magician, which you need to be when his gimmick was being a bad magician.
His gimmick is kind of some like fuck up tricks in a way to do it on purpose to make it look bad, but then if you don't find that funny, he's moving on to fucking up something else within like seconds.
And that's something I always found interesting about the idea of magic, that to make magic look as if it's gone wrong, you need to be a really good magician, because you need to be so exceptionally skilled to make sure that it goes wrong in the right way.
5 hearts, ace of spades, queen of diamonds. But the ace of spades down there. 5 of hearts down there. And the queen of diamonds has completely vanished. Both sides of the mat, look. What? How's that then? The other side. Look at that.
And Tommy Cooper was a comedy magician. As mentioned, he cut a towering figure over the comedy industry while he was alive, right? Literally and metaphorically. The dude was 6'5" tall and walked around everywhere wearing a fez. And if anyone's curious, like, okay, what's the deal with the fez? So according to Tommy Cooper, when he was going to do a show in Cairo one evening, he saw a waiter wearing one, snatched it off his head and put it on his own head. And he got such a big laugh because of how silly it looked seeing this giant man wearing a tiny fez. He went, you know what? New gimmick.
Karl, fezzes are cool.
Fezzes are cool. And they were cool before. Was it Matt Smith who put that one on, or was that the other dude?
No, it was Matt Smith that put the fez on. And I think Matt Smith only wore the fez like twice maybe, and the first time he did it was only for like a very short period of time.
Yeah, unlike Tommy Cooper, who wore it for literally his entire career. Like, his entire career he wore that fez. That was like the staple of his show. Like, you'd see that guy wearing the fez, like, that's Tommy Cooper. I
don't think I've ever seen a clip of him without the fez.
Yeah, like I said, wore it for his entire career, at least in, like, television entertainment.
I tell you what, I take this one and this one, put them both in your hand like that, and just hold it there like that. I tell you what, I take one here, look. Is it possible to make that one jump from there to over there? No. Look, I put it in there like that. So it'll go, boom, boom, open your hand.
Magic. And it just like, it looked really fucking funny because just like, he's wearing like, a guy in a suit and a fez. It does stand out, and the fact he's like so ginormous made it look even funny. It's like Greg Davis, right? Like another comedian who's known for being quite tall. The essence of a good comedian is you play the hand that you dealt.
So let's take a look. Oh, sorry, that's still your bit, Chris. Sorry. You serious? Yes. Let's take a look is my line.
Yeah, and I think it's quite funny in Greg Davis's case because, like, you always assume that Alex Horne is quite a little guy because he sits next to a dude who's like 6'8". But I think Alex Horne himself is like nearly 6 foot. I think he's like 5'10" or 11 or something. He's not a small guy.
But like Greg Davis is a ginormous man, and that's the thing. In the world of comedy, you play the hand that you dealt. Right? Yeah. And Tommy Cooper was like very good at that. Like he knew full well, like he's a goofy looking dude. He's big and he's awkward, and that's why his skill as a magician was so funny. You don't expect someone as large and ungainly as him to be so skilled, and he played that to his advantage. And he's one of a handful of people who've literally died on stage. And we won't dwell on this because this is a comedy video series. But if I don't mention it, someone in the comments might, why didn't you mention that he died on stage? Well, one, it's fucking depressing.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting because, not interesting, that's probably the wrong word. I guess it is interesting, but in that macabre way that when he died on stage, no one realised that he was dying because he had a running joke of pretending to die on stage.
But have you ever died a death on stage in front of an audience?
Oh, yes, I have. Oh, yes.
Right. So it's, the magical comedy equivalent of The Boy Who Cried Wolf.
Yes, and that happened with an American comedian called Red Fox. He also died on stage of a heart attack, and people didn't realise he was dying of a heart attack actually on stage because he had a gimmick of clutching his heart as if he was having a heart attack.
I've never had pains like this before. Oh, this is the worst one I ever had, son. Oh, it's the worst one. This is a big one. I'm dying. You hear that, Elizabeth? I'm coming to join you, honey.
And with Tommy Cooper, he would usually start his shows by coming on and claiming that he was ill. And he'd say, I've had a terrible pain here all day, and he'd pull out a pane of glass. So when he had a heart attack on stage, people thought it was part of the bit. Which is, in a way, you can romanticize that to an extent of, he died getting a laugh. Literally, he died on stage, and people were laughing at it. Which you can either see as sad, or, it's the summation of his career, right? Everything he did was funny, including his death. And I choose to read it the latter way, because the idea of someone dying on stage asking for help while everyone laughs at them is too depressing a thought to dwell on for too long.
It is, but I do appreciate kind of, from the side of trying to make people laugh and make entertaining content myself, I'm always in the idea of if I die on camera, send it out there.
Well, I've joked about it before, haven't I? Lucas, guess who's back in videos now? Because I thought, you know what? It's been a while since we had a cameo from... There we go, look, it's Bonely! I thought, I'll put Bonely in the background. I've often joked, if I died, I wouldn't mind if you marionetted my skeleton in front of a green screen. I don't give a shit. And I would hope that if there is an afterlife and Tommy Cooper happens to be there, he at least finds that funny. Because you'd hope that he would, right?
Yeah.
And Cooper was one of the few people who could genuinely describe it as a comedian's comedian. That is a comedian who could make other comedians laugh, which is a very, very rare skill. And there's few examples of that I can think off the top of my head. One is Lee Mack.
What is the circumference of my head?
Could you just have a little bit of a... I would say that, from my expert's opinion, you are... I would say you are a large.
So if anyone unfamiliar with the format, would I lie to you? It's very simple. A panel of comedians and celebrities read out a piece of paper, and the other people on the panel have to guess whether or not it's a lie or the truth. And Lee Mack has got some classic moments on that show where you legit see the other members of the panel, who are in often, many cases, comedians themselves, absolutely lose their shit. In hysterics.
I can smell if there is a dead fly in the room.
Earlier on, I came to see you in your dressing room to say hello, and I had a little look in the window, and only now I'm thinking there was a dead fly in there and you never mentioned it.
Before you came in, I went, smell of fly. But I found that smell was soon overpowered, Jason.
Yeah, totally. And it really surprises me on that show because they have like 2 guest panelists every time, but they also have David Mitchell's team and Lee Mack's team. And the fact that after however long that show's been going on, they still have managed to find new things that they can tell the truth about after this entire time.
Well, I think in the later seasons, they've run out of things that are going to be true. So they like to just make Lee Mack tell outrageous stories. He's quite good at them. But like the other comedian I think who could be considered to be a comedian's comedian is Bob Mortimer. And on Would I Lie to You, he has some of the most classic moments on the show. Where just some of the shit that guy's done in his life, it sounds like a lie. Where he's like, I do my own dentistry.
Do you remember Bob being on this show before?
Yeah, and it's always true.
And there's like a moment on the show after like they bring him back for like the 4th time. And you legit see David Mitchell just go, then what is it, Bob? You see him break? He's like, well, you can't believe me when I'm talking about it. Like, then what can I do, Bob?
Following advice from Chris Rea, I always crack an egg into my bath. I've done for 22 years. Honestly, please don't base it on that.
What should I base it on, Bob?
Is it the truth? Or is it a lie?
This is awful.
I was telling a lie.
Because like just Bob Mortimer just has he's so naturally charismatic and so naturally funny. Like the story he tells about when he blew up his house with fireworks.
The fuck?
Have you not seen that? Well, that's a classic Would I Like You moment where he's like,
no,
I can't do it justice. But when he talks about how like he set his house on fire with some fireworks.
I went to next door where Miss Best lived. She was, bless her, she's about 80. And I knocked on their door and said, my house is on fire. And she said, do you know, I thought it was.
I've seen Bob Mortimer in things, but I don't really think I've seen any of the episodes of Would I Lie to You that they've been on because I don't remember any of these outrageous stories.
You need to watch them. They are fucking incredible. And Lucas, do you have an example of a comedian's comedian I could put a clip in of?
I think quite a lot of the time I've seen them on QI. Ross Noble seems like one of those.
Oh yeah, like Ross Noble, like how does that guy's mind work?
I do not know because I've seen him do live performances and I've watched some of his performances like, that were recorded and stuff. And I believe him when he does interviews and says, like, I pretty much make it up every time and just see where my mind goes.
Like 90% of his set is improvised, according to some sources, and that's one of the reasons he's one of my comedy heroes. The fact that his mind so quick. It's like Lee Mack. Like Lee Mack, his mind is razor sharp. Like possibly one of the most quick-witted comedians I've ever seen in anything.
And in a slightly different sense, I don't know whether it's quick-witted or just quick acting, but Tim Vine, just the fact that similar to Tommy Cooper, it's just like hit after hit after hit.
Yeah, because Tim Vine is like a one-liner comedian, and the one-liner comedian is probably the hardest kind of comedian to be, because for like a 10-minute set, you need to have 80 jokes.
Yeah, and I think he literally has the record for the most amount of jokes told in a certain time period, right?
This bloke said to me, he said, I'm going to dress up as a small island off the coast of Italy. I said, don't be so silly.
The fastest joke teller in whatever period of time. That
he has like a record for like most jokes told in a minute or something like that, and he's also as well on a sitcom with Lee Mack.
Did you remember to stretch?
I want to get faster, not longer.
Enough of your sex life.
And I think of like just one of the examples of like Lee Mack's wits. That's just so fast. I don't know how they get onto the subject, but like David Mitchell jokes about killing a pizza man, and just 1 second later, just Lee Mack goes, "Yeah, you kill one pizza man, then you kill another one. That's the domino effect." And it's like, how fucking fast is that? It's 1 second.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Would I Lie to You as well is one of those where I remember Richard Osman talking about it of like, oh no, that's not a show that you like get prep for in advance, like because you all have to react in real time to the truths or lies. Like he was like, some people can do it, some people can't, but just the level of talent that like Mitchell and Mac have to just do it week on week is like ridiculous.
Yeah. That's one of the things like I consider to be one of like the greatest living comedian, like a comedian's comedian. Like I said, Bob Mortimer, making other comedians like just fall down in fits of hysterics. And
do you know, Gary Cheeseman was a big lad, yeah, a very big head, sniper's dream they used to call him. He's such a nice. The thing is, he's such a nice lad, and he was a.
I love these points in the show where we say, Bob, let's all gather around the fireside and you can tell us tales of your youth.
Tommy Cooper was a comedian's comedian, and there's a couple of stories of like that exemplify this. One is where he was being given an award show, and he just turned up with his wife. Like he wasn't doing a bit or anything. He wasn't going on stage. He was just there for an award. And it's like, oh, like Tommy Cooper, would you like to stand up? And the story goes that he stood up, and the entire room just collapsed in fits of laughter because him standing up was that funny. He was able to make people laugh with a simple
he had
motion.
Something about him when he was standing up.
Just the way that he just carried himself was just natural. And I think it's when people have got that expectation of you, just the fact that they see him stood up, like just in their head, they're probably thinking like, they think back to all the times they've seen him get ready for a set. And apparently, like, he just stood up, waited for 5 minutes for the laughter to die down. Went, I've not said anything yet. And the room died again. And that was the only thing he said in 10 minutes. And it was 10 minutes of straight laughter.
Oh, that wasn't. Where I
Can you think of any other comedians like that, where just like their sheer presence is able to like make people laugh? Because I think one might be like Peter Kay. Like Peter Kay has like it's a fantastic physical performer. I think to especially now that he's more well known, he has a lot of like classic jokes that people recognise.
Look, buddy, I'm tired. I've not changed my underpants. Give me the keys, or I'll be doing a bit of busting. Mick busting.
And I'll do your dentist a favour and knock them bastards out.
Yeah, you talk about like such a naturally gifted comedian that like obviously he had to take a long break in his career for whatever personal reasons that doesn't want to talk about, which I respect, let him have his privacy. But just he had an absolute just belter of years where just there's that, oh my god, Peter Kay is fucking unstoppable.
We'll go back now to Tommy Cooper, and despite his obvious skill as a comedian, he did have several vices. One of which was alcohol. Like he did like himself a drink, and there's a couple of famous stories that are possibly apocryphal, maybe not. It depends. Like when Tommy Cooper is from a time where the things that he did are now legendary. So do you have to you go back a certain amount of time when it comes to like celebrities, it becomes legend. It's not rumour.
That's
it's
the
legend.
thing is, you've always got to take stories from decades ago with a pinch of salt because people might just exaggerate that over time, right?
Yes, and one story told about Tommy Cooper is that he would put whiskey on his cereal. He'd have the Beerios. And possibly, made up, but there are people out there who swear they saw him do it, and they swear that when he did it, and they saw him do it, he'd turn around and say, it's healthier than milk. Ever the comedian.
And not even the idea of Beerios, but straight just whiskey would be
Which makes
savage.
it sound like it's made up. As I said, he lived so long ago that it becomes legend. Like, it's not rumour, like I said, it's legendary. But the other thing that he was addicted to, Lucas, was being a colossal tight ass of the absolute highest order.
Well, Karl, I don't know whether he was northern or southern, but the fact that you just described a British person being a tight arse who drank a lot, that sounds like a lot of British people.
I thought you were going to say it sounds like me then. It's like, don't you fucking dare. So I'm going on a stag do in a couple of weeks and I'm going to Benidorm. And the reason why I'm going to Benidorm is because the guy going on a stag do is like, Karl, I know you are a yellow sticker warrior, referring to when I go to Tesco and get the yellow sticker sandwiches. It's like, you will love Benidorm because everything costs €1.
God, there's a reason that everything costs €1 in Benidorm, Karl.
He wants to take me to a place called Yorkshire Pride, which is apparently a pub owned by a guy from Barnsley that has like John Smith's on tap. And it's so popular.
The wrong kind of pride is going to be in that pub.
It's so popular, Lucas, they opened a second one called Yorkshire Pride 2. Anyway, so
I just love watching clips of, like, you know, places in, like, Spain where it's like, oh, here's a lovely Spanish beachfront. What are the restaurants like? And it's all just random fucking English people serving sad egg and chips in the morning.
Double egg and chips, let's go. So, Tommy Cooper was again, it's legendary. A legendary tight arse. And he would endlessly complain about how much stuff costs, and he would never, ever leave a tip. But he was aware that the more famous that he got, the more people would expect one, right? It's like, hey, he's famous, he's rich. Famous means rich. Rich means big tipper. So Tommy Cooper developed a few ways to avoid tipping. One of which was using his skills as a magician to never give people money. And this is a dick move, but I kind of respect the way that he'd do it. So what he'd do is, he would get like a large amount of money, and he'd put it into an envelope, and he'd tell the person, this is your tip. You've just got to pick which envelope it's in. And then he would use his sleight of hand skill to ensure they never got the right envelope.
Because at least then there's that fun element of like, well, I played a game of chance with Tommy Cooper. I did lose, but...
That was his defense of like, look, I don't want to give him the money, but they got essentially a private performance from a very famous comedian. Right?
Whereas someone just being rude and telling you to piss off and not leaving a tip is a little bit different, but still, it is just him trying to be as tight as possible.
Yeah, and perhaps the most dickish thing he would do is a story recounted by many a taxi driver who would drive him home after a show. And they'd talk about how, yeah, he would be like, be laughing and joking and asking how the family was, that sort of thing. Then we'd get to his front door, and he'd come around to the front of the taxi, and he'd slide something into your pocket and say, you go home, you have a drink on me. You drive away, pull it open, teabag. But because he was a comedian, most people weren't mad about it because it was funny. So he got away with not tipping because that's the thing. Most people laugh when that happened.
That's the thing is, you can get around being a dickhead if you're charming enough, but most dickheads aren't very charming.
And that's the thing, right? So even though he was like a legendary tight ass and like he abhorred the idea of spending money, because he did it in a funny way or used his skills as a magician or a comedian to disarm people, I found when I was researching this article very few examples of people getting actively annoyed about it, and most people just like chalk it up to him being like, okay, he just didn't like spending money, at least he was funny about it. And like, I essentially got a private performance from one of the most famous people working on the comedy circuit. And you can't be mad either, can you? Because like you've just been done that way. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, he got me again. Like, imagine how many people he got by not doing like, the sleight of hand thing. It's like, do you ever see those like videos, like the Turkish ice cream men, where they just where you try and grab the ice cream cone and they keep snatching it away? There's a certain point where just okay, I'm fine not having the ice cream. It's yours.
The best part is though when it goes on for so long that people lose hope and then regain that little bit of hope and try again, and they get them again.
The best ones though is when they like, I don't know how many cones they have where they grab the cone and they pull it out and it's like, wait, what? And at that point, like, you can't be mad at the person for doing it, can you? It's like, the fact that they're being a dick about not giving you your ice cream becomes like a performance in of itself. And that becomes kind of the thing that you're paying for.
It becomes part of the charm in of itself, as you say, and it gives off very different energy. Like, you hear stories of like, oh, well, this person came in, sat down and put my tip on their table and then said, if every time you do something wrong, I'm going to take some of this money away. And that kind of energy is the opposite side, right? Where it's like, I'm just going to be the biggest ball sack possible.
Or you hear stories about like just celebrities or like influencers. It's very often influencers being just like huge arseholes and like doing the big I am and demanding service and like, you know, special treatment, and then not tipping on top of that. Tommy Cooper was reportedly a very shy man. So he didn't, like, even though he was like, you know, very large of a life on stage, he was very private in his private life. So he didn't try to draw attention to himself, which I can't, for me, that makes it a little bit better, right? He didn't want to draw attention to himself. He didn't want to spend any of his money, and he didn't like the idea that because he was famous, people expected money off him, which I get.
Yeah, I get it. And like, it is a bit awkward for a person who is famous and 6'5", but wants to keep to themselves and not be noticed.
Profile, right? And we can move on from that now, Lucas. Do you have any like other favourite comedians or comedy moments or shows? Because I mentioned that I'm going to Benidorm, so I've got to give a shout out to the show Benidorm. Because do you know what hotel I'm going to? I'm going to stay in the hotel from the show.
No, it looks so old and run down.
So I might have to do on Wiki Weekends, Lucas, this like the sister channel we run. I might have to do an episode on Benidorm. And I'll try and get some photos of like me at the location so we can compare it to the ones from the show.
The other day, I was spending some time with my mum and she put Benidorm on in the background, like season 1 of Benidorm.
Isn't it the most British show ever?
It is, but that shit was like filmed, 15, 20 years ago, and the hotel looked bad then, Karl.
Yeah, can't wait. I'm excited. I love Benidorm, the show. Like, the thing is, because when I watch Benidorm, like Steve Pemberton, just he looks like he looks like my dad. And he talks like my dad.
How's your chicken, ma'am? A bit bland. Wish I'd gone for the beef curtains.
And I remember like the reason I love Benidorm as a show is because it's as close to just a documentary on British culture as you're ever going to get.
Yeah.
Just like Steve Pemberton, where it's like just the whole thing about not wanting to spend any money. Well, like, every time his kid's like, Dad, can we get an ice cream? Because that was me. I was that little kid asking for an ice cream. And Dad's like, no. Why? We're staying in here. Can we go to the beach? No. Why? Because it's all free. That was me. Yeah. That was my dad.
And one of the episodes, he's like, kids, we've got a TV in the room now. And then he plugs it in and it's fucking coin operated and he loses his shit.
He loses his mind. And then you have like some great characters on that show. Like, it's the character of Les who always cracks me up because there's a line on that show that put me on my arse. Because I didn't clock it the first couple of times I watched the show, because it's one of those my comfort shows that I watch in the background. And it's where he's having an argument with Johnny Vegas, and Johnny Vegas plays a character who does exist. It's a person I've met, and it is the guy who thinks they're fucking God's gift, because they've got nothing else going on in their life.
Oh, get off me! Nobody beats the article!
He's the pub quiz champion, right? Who like constantly brags about, I can do fucking anything. You know, I was going to join the army, special forces, all that nonsense. And it's like, you're sat having a pint with your mum. You're not that impressive, mate. Yeah, and I know that guy.
Because he calls himself the Oracle and then says that his mum that he's on holiday with is his fucking PA.
Yeah, because and it's such a beautifully captured snapshot of a person who absolutely 100% exists. And it is just the guy at the pub who just constantly brags about how fucking big a deal he is, despite the fact all he does is sit at the pub.
Yeah, like, they've got so little going on, but at the same time, they think they are the hottest shit in the room at all times.
And one of the other characters that I think is just so perfectly encapsulates a very specific kind of British person is the character of Les. And he's like the old dude who like is dating Madge, who we always joke looks like my mum, which she doesn't like. But he's still funny because my mum looks like... We keep joking, Mum, when we're going to get you that mobility scooter one day. And it's like, stop talking about that anyway.
It's not the most flattering comparison.
It's not.
Like all.
But he's still funny to say. And it's where he's having an argument with Johnny Vegas' character. And again, the line, it's so quick that I didn't notice it the first time, is when he says, you can't talk to me like that. My dad fought at Normandy. And it's like, that's it. That's the old person who's like, you got to respect me. Why? I know someone who fought in World War II. It's like, well, you fucking didn't, did you? But they're so insistent that you have to respect them because they're old.
Because idiots like you get people killed.
Are you calling an idiot, you dickhead?
All right, ladies, that's enough.
Dickhead? Dickhead? You can't talk to me like that. My father fell at Normandy.
I don't care if you went arse over tit in Scunthorpe, you're a dickhead.
but they've not done anything with their life, but they still hold on to the achievements of the people before them. It's like, that's so good.
Yeah.